The Predators got back in the win column tonight against the Vancouver Canucks, a team 10 points behind them in the standings, and if we're honest, a complete dumpster fire of an organization this season. And in what should have been an easy victory against one of the worst goaltending teams in the entire NHL, Nashville lost a 2-goal lead twice in this game, once in the second period, and again, a little more famously, in the final 2 minutes of the third. And while there were some genuinely great performers by the Predators tonight, including Roman Josi and once again Juuso Parssinen, this team hasn't been the same since Filip Forsberg left early in the game against the Flyers on the 11th. And while they did get those wins over Philly, Florida, and Vancouver, the efforts against the Coyotes, Boston, and Vancouver really showed this team really can't compete at an elite level. One player in particular has struggled the most without Filip Forsberg, and he's the topic of tonight's One Big Stat. Matt Duchene does currently sit in the top 25% of the NHL when looking at goals above replacement, a metric from Evolving Wild. But while it may seem easy to say that Duchene wouldn't be able to recreate his career season last year, and that's why he's not performing up to what we would consider his standard, it does look like Duchene is not actually at his best when he's without Filip Forsberg. According to Michael Blake McCurdy of HockeyViz.com, no player on the team takes a bigger hit on both offense and defense than Matt Duchene does without Filip Forsberg. They're one of the best combinations on the team when they're both available and playing together, but without, Duchene's performance declined significantly. But what about the numbers? Let's take a look at the stats and see if those numbers match up with what we're saying. Tonight was maybe one of Matt Duchene's worst performances of the season. No points scored, a dismal 14% expected goal share, that meant that Vancouver was creating 86% of all offense when Duchene was on the ice, and his fourth worst defensive performance of the season as well. But how has Duchene fared in games where Forsberg was out compared to the rest of the year? Goal scoring, funnily enough, actually is not changed. Duchene averages about 0.32 goals per game with or without Forsberg, and Duchene's goal share, the goals for percentage without Forsberg, actually does increase slightly from 45 to 50%. But the rest of the stats, they're not very good. Just to name a few, Duchene drops from an average of 0.8 points per game to 0.65 points per game without Filip Forsberg. His expected goal output per game drops by 35% from 0.3 expected goals to 0.2, and his shot attempt share drops 5% as well. And the expected goal output, well, it's not good. It drops down 14% without Filip Forsberg. Now, mind you, the combination of the two players, Duchene averages about a 50-50 expected goal share, which means he's creating offense and he's allowing about the same amount of offense from the opponents. But he's dropping down to a dismal 36% without Filip Forsberg. And that has been a big reason why this team has been really struggled without Filip Forsberg, because Forsberg provides not much in the way of defense for the most part, but his offensive ability and his playmaking ability is what helps free up his line mates, create a lot of opportunities. And when teams are trying to play defense against a guy like Forsberg, they're willing to take a little more chance, and they can get burned by that. And so both Nashville's defense and offense does improve with Forsberg, even though he's not that strong impact defensive guy. So what have we learned from this? Well, Nashville's in the unenviable situation where they have to try and claw back into the playoff contention with the GM and head coach sitting on what's basically maybe the hottest of seats in the entire NHL. And now, for the foreseeable future at least, they have to do it without Filip Forsberg, whose return is still undetermined. When a star player goes out for an extended period of time, you want your other high money stars to step up. Unfortunately, this season, even though it's a small sample size so far, Duchene is not doing that. And this comes from a guy who likes Matt Duchene more than most. Even though nearly every single player on the team plays worse without Filip Forsberg than they do with him, Duchene's not the only one by far. Matt Duchene is David Poyle's guy. He's the guy he wanted for so long. He tried to trade for him on multiple occasions and then finally got him and signed him to a big long-term deal. And if his performance right now doesn't improve, it's going to be a pretty huge indictment of Poyle's GMing. If Nashville can't count on those expensive stars to step up when one guy goes out, then maybe the writing is on the wall. And the organization has to admit that this franchise is not built to succeed for the near future, and for once, take action. Because they may be coming to this realization now, or may not have come to it yet at all, but I think they're going to slowly start to understand the thing that you and I and most of the fans also understand. This team needs to start over, and it's time to start the rebuild. And that's tonight's One Big Stat. Charlie?
I'm Crazy